Since we discovered the notion of time, we've tended to think of it as objective, meaning that we assume time runs at the same speed for everyone. However, Einstein changed all of this. In his theory of general relativity, he introduced the idea that time can be different for each individual, bending depending on the speed of movement. In other words, time runs subjectively, relative to the individual's state or position, rather than being a universal constant. Einstein demonstrated this with a thought experiment involving a plane. He proposed that if you set a clock on a plane flying at high speed, the clock would run slower than one on the ground, a phenomenon known as time dilation. This experiment was confirmed in practice when scientists flew atomic clocks on planes, and upon landing, the clocks showed a small but measurable time difference. This concept can also be observed in everyday experiences. For example, consider the Doppler effect with sound. When a speeding train approaches, the pitch of its horn is higher, and when it moves away, the pitch drops. This change in frequency parallels how time can seem to change depending on speed and perspective. At first, this is mind-boggling because it shatters the idea that time is static and universal for everyone. Instead, time is a dynamic property that can vary for each individual. In fact, this is not such an absurd concept when you consider that each planet experiences its own form of time, which is different from Earth's. For example, a day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus. Venus rotates very slowly on its axis. One day on Venus lasts 243 Earth days. The planet orbits the Sun faster than Earth, however, so 1 year on Venus takes only about 225 Earth days, making a Venusian day longer than its year. We're simply accustomed to the time system on Earth, where we've quantified it into 24-hour days to help us structure our lives and activities. Interestingly, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, many people have noticed that time seems to be moving faster. Countless individuals have reported this perception, with some mentioning how it feels as though entire months are passing in a blink. Spiritual teachers and practitioners have also observed this, such as astrologers and energy healers, who say that the acceleration of time reflects a collective shift in consciousness. Christian priest and prophet Brandon Biggs suggests this might be because we are living in the pre-tribulation period, and the quickening of time is meant to reduce suffering by speeding up events. Some who believe in an impending doom view this acceleration as part of the end times script, where the end is inevitable and the timeline is rushing toward it. Meanwhile, those who support the idea of regeneration and spiritual growth argue that we are in a period of great change and that the chaos is meant to reveal deep-seated issues so that we can address them and move toward a brighter future. Regardless of one's perspective, most people do notice and agree that time seems to be moving more quickly. Since Einstein proved that time is relative, it's not hard to understand why it might feel different for different people. In spiritualism, it's believed that time, like everything else, can be manipulated because everything is made of energy and frequency, including time. If time can be viewed subjectively, then it's easier to understand how it can feel different for each person. For instance, we've all experienced moments when time seems to fly by. This usually happens when we are fully immersed in an activity we love, or when we're in the zone, such as when we're engaged in a hobby or work that excites us. Bouchard, a spiritual teacher, encourages people to find what they're passionate about and pursue it, because when we're doing what we love, we're living in the present moment without concern for the past or future. This is when time accelerates. It's not that time is speeding up, but that we're so engaged that we lose track of it. In fact, doing any activity that brings us joy, such as spending time with friends or playing a computer game that you enjoy, can have the same effect of making time feel like it's passing more quickly. On the other hand, we've all experienced time seeming to slow down, especially during periods of pain or discomfort. Take, for example, the reality show Alone, where contestants must survive in extreme conditions for 100 days. Despite the show's premise, contestants often report that time feels excruciatingly slow, especially during moments of hunger or isolation. Similarly, when doing exercises like planking, the timer seems to crawl when we're in physical discomfort. This shows how time feels slower when we're in discomfort, whether physically, mentally, or emotionally. If you find that time is constantly dragging for you, it may be a signal that something in your life, whether it's your job, a relationship, or your environment, needs to change. As it indicates, you are doing something that you think brings you pain or isn't fruitful. Finding joy and doing what you love can help restore a sense of time's flow. One thing both of these scenarios share is intense focus. In the first case, your focus is on the activity itself, which makes time seem to vanish. In the second case, your focus is so deeply on your pain that time seems to stretch endlessly. Both situations involve a form of mindfulness or a meditative state. A technique you can use to slow down time, for example, when you're late for something, is to focus your mind and energy and imagine your personal clock slowing down. By doing so, you'll notice that your sense of time seems to stretch and you feel like you can move faster. This doesn't mean time is actually slowing down, but that your awareness of it becomes sharper and more intense. You'll be more focused on the steps you need to take, creating the illusion of time stretching. However, use this technique carefully. It's mentally and physically draining, so only resort to emergency situations. This illustrates the incredible power of the mind and energy. We'll explore more of what the mind can achieve in future discussions, so stay tuned.